somewhere.
All right, I'm going to get started. Welcome to the January 7th Milledgeville Rotary meeting. Happy New Year. And please silence your cell phones. And Frank is going to be our Rotarian today.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Lord, thank you for our many blessings. Thank you for this club. Help us to continue to serve our community. Thank you for this wonderful food. Thank you for our guest speaker today. Lord, our country is fractured. Let us help us and heal. Help us to listen to each other, to seek humility, and to listen to your wisdom. We ask for these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, four-way test. And everything we think, say, or do. First,
This is true.
second,
Is there all concerned?
third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
fourth,
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Frank. As you sit down, please remember the blue buckets for Alzheimer's research. Last time it was a $9 collection. Anybody want to match $9? Okay, Frank, thank you. Okay, see we have some visitors. Can you introduce your visitors? Sorry.
I have my friend Kevin Barlow with me today.
Okay, thank you. Moving right along, prayer requests.
Jay Hodges, who you all know is a member of our club, but I think he's just been transferred. He's moving to St. Simon's, and they signed to close on their house yesterday, and the moving trust came, and the day before he was walking out with the box and fell and broke his leg. He is in the hospital in Macon as of yesterday afternoon, late evening. They have not done surgery yet, but it will require surgery. Linda's quite stressed, and poor Jay is laid up.
Thank you, Angie. Any other prayer requests? Okay, I have a question. Bojangles Dining Room is open again. How many people would be interested in doing the first Wednesday morning makeup at 7:30? Okay, so we'll start next week, or next in February. It's like February 3rd, maybe something like that. Okay, Keith, you want to talk about tickets?
Yeah. You should have received an email from me and Karen from Jack, and it's talking about the Rotary raffle tickets. So, well, I think we were very successful this last year, considering we were during the pandemic and all the things that are going on. The members, some memberships coming, some memberships doing it online, that kind of stuff. So, I think we're very fortunate to have been able to continue our Rotary raffle, the super raffle. And thank you very much for the members who have sold and bought tickets. And really, truly, the raffle committee had a lot of challenges this year on getting prize lists too, because as you can only imagine, a lot of the businesses are concerned with their inventory. You know, what is my inventory going to be in 2021? So we did have some challenging times. Luckily good news there is we're done with all of our contracts with all of our vendors, and everybody understands we buy all of our prizes. Okay, so only one prize is donated, and that's one from Direct Furniture. He actually donates the lazy boy to us, but every other one we buy those. So we have to get a contract with everybody. So all the contracts are completed. And I'll do the spreadsheet this weekend, and I'll have it out. I'll send it to Jack, and Jack will send it out first of next week, so we'll have that. The tiny bit of business that we have today, I guess I better take my jacket off. I'm Steve. We do have a few more tickets left, okay? And we really need to sell or buy these tickets so that we can sit there and say that we have them all sold or all bought or something like that. So if you feel that you can purchase another ticket, please raise your hand and I'll bring the receipt to you.
How many have you got?
We have like 14 left. What's your name? I think we have about 14 left. So, and here again, I think it's positive news. I mean, you know, I know we've already had one drawing, so there's only $51, but I still think it's positive news that we were able to sell, you know, the 86 tickets, 800, you know, but I think that's amazing that we only have this many. If you would like to, if you would like to take some because you think you might sell them, but we really would like to try to do it before noon tomorrow so that we don't have any more drawings.
Let's just wrap it up too. Let's get it sold.
Okay.
Guys, this is our only fundraiser of the year. And I know a lot of you have sold a lot of tickets. I know a lot of you have bought. We need to get rid of this.
Absolutely. And I couldn't remember.
Absolutely. That's why.
We had a Rotarian that won last.
Oh, yeah, Michael. Just put your name aside.
If you don't have, if you're one of those tickets today, and you're a club member, and you don't have, you know, cash or a check with you, I will bill you for it.
Yeah, you're gonna need to bill Jack and bill.
So that's a schedule.
It's a joke.
Well, you got me good.
I can do it, but I'm going to send those bills out, rather than wait on April 1st.
You can sign the one.
How we doing? How we doing?
Let me look.
Very one.
So the center back there, I want Karen.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so we have.
Don't tell Chandler I bought him for somebody else.
The secret.
One, two, three, four. So we have 6 more.
I'll take one.
1, 2, 3. Wow. Hold tight, President. I'm sorry. I'm holding you up. Are you speaking the line?
I'm waiting on the answer. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. I think whatever I think you think.
Karen Brooks works at the bank and she's losing her mind over this, so we can get this wrapped up today.
Yes, I get behind
Karen, thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
that. A lot of help.
Any number.
Any number, you just pick.
She's at the
Find some more.
Tom, I'll look at it. Maybe.
Just getting to know you. I didn't know.
Yes. He's not well.
Yeah, that's
Hey, Gary.
Yes, right.
You're asking that question.
we made some money on that.
Hey, what?
You had a better shot of we got slow to I managed to get them, okay, so 32. Okay, so we have to go in. That's good. That's good. You got to sign a little bit. Yeah, and I'm watching, you know, it's not, it's having face to double on. Okay, so thank y'all very much. That got us taken care of. So another successful year on 106.
Yeah, that's good news. Any other announcements? Okay, Aaron.
I have an announcement.
Oh, okay,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry, I wasn't paying attention. The chamber just came out with a brand new community guide. We haven't done it in 5 years, 6 years. I don't know, here it is. And the year reporter printed them for us. Thank you very much. They look beautiful, and several businesses in Rotary advertise. So I have a box over here. You're welcome to come grab some, take one for yourself, whatever you would like. Okay. Sorry.
No problem. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to give you guys an update on the holiday social. I think it was very successful. Those who attended seemed to enjoy it. And we raised $1,200 for 3 of our local memory care units, and Angie was gracious enough to deliver them. So they got 400 apiece before the holidays. So thank y'all very much. And then today we have our guest speaker. I don't think he needs an introduction really. Anybody might know who Hank is, but he's going to update us on the city of Milledgeville.
Thanks, Aaron. You know, whenever I speak to a group and they say send a bio, now I've got it prepared, and it makes me sound a lot more impressive than I am because I wrote it. And but I almost always, and Aaron will tell you, I said in my email, use none of this or whatever you want to of it, because especially if I'm speaking locally, typically I don't need much of an introduction. I've got a couple of things that I want to make sure that I tell you today. So I've jotted some notes to make sure that I get those things out, because some of you know, as Jimmy said earlier, I'll chase a rabbit if I get started talking. So I'm going to be referring to those notes, but I also want to make sure that I give enough time for y'all to ask questions. I'll take any and all, and if I can answer it here, I will. If I can't, I'll go back to the office and I'll find your answer, and I'll get back in touch with you. So let me go over a couple of things. I do appreciate the opportunity to be with y'all today. I don't want to sound Pollyannish in this comment, but I really believe that I am blessed with an opportunity to work for the city of Milledgeville today, and ultimately work for the people that live here. And that blessing is kind of multi-leveled for me, but I think the biggest place for me that it comes from is the fact that like many of you in here, or some of you in here, Milledgeville is my home. And to have ever thought running up and down Hancock and Wayne Streets, running errands for my mother in the early to mid 60s, going in the pool room and getting hot dogs when I was 5 years old because they didn't let women in the pool room at the time, and being able to get in the pool room by leaning against the door to get in, but I couldn't pull the door open to get out. Folks that work for the pool room would have to come open the door to let me out so I could run back to my mother's office, which at that time was First Federal Savings and Loan, which was where the overflow dining room for Barbarito's is now. And to have had the opportunity to do that in the 60s, and then what I've done from there, and then to be in this position is a big deal for me. It's a really big deal for me. And I don't have many regrets in life, but one of my biggest is that my mom and daddy weren't here to see this. Because my mama would have been telling everybody, and my daddy would have been going on. I want to talk to you a little bit about what we do at the city and what we've done at the city. I'll go ahead and lay it on the table right off the bat. We don't always hit a home run at the city, but we do hit home runs sometimes, contrary to maybe some of the opinions of some folks. And I don't do this job alone. I work with the mayor. I work with our council people. And their work really and truly does go a lot further than just setting policy and plans for our work. They really do want to move the city forward. And I've enjoyed having the opportunity to work with them in this position. And you know, our meetings are not always cordial because they often have things to say to me that I don't like. I may have things to say to them that they don't like. When it's all said and done, the thing that we do is we are all on the same page when we come out of the room. And I think that's what's important. But it's not enough to have plans and policies. Somebody's got to put those to work. Somebody's got to give those legs, and that's our city staff. Our employees are fiercely loyal, and they are committed to the city. They work tirelessly to make it a better place for us to work, live, and play. I was reminded of that at 2:30 in the morning, the Thursday morning before Christmas, when I was out on Blandy Road with a bus of 16-inch water line. Unfortunately, we had to completely cut the water off to make that repair, but you can imagine on a 16-inch line, that would be the case. Sometimes they can actually be repaired under pressure. We don't have to completely cut the water off, which helps a lot. But those guys were in that hole at 5 o'clock in the morning in 30-degree weather. I was standing on the side of the hole looking at them, and I was cold. And that's just the kind of thing that all of our folks with the city do every day. So I said earlier, we don't always hit a home run, but I think we've hit some runs in the last 12 to 18 months, and I want to mention a couple of those to y'all, and then let you know a little bit about what I see going on in the future. To me, the biggest home run that the city has hit since I've been in the role of city manager, whether it's during the interim time or now that I'm permanent, is the completion of the service delivery agreement with the county. This achievement would, if completing service delivery agreement gives you warm and fuzzy feelings, something's wrong with you. Right? But it is, I think, the most important accomplishment we've had in the last 12 to 18 months. Most of you know that those negotiations had been starting and stopping for about a year before we got down to brass knuckles. I started to say brass tacks, but it's really kind of brass knuckles in the fight to get that situation resolved. And we got serious about our work. It really and truly seemed like we had nonstop negotiations to get the agreement completed. A lot of times, by the time I got home, Cindy was in the bed, so she would ask me the next morning, "So were y'all still talking about service delivery yesterday?" And I'd say, "Yeah, honey, unfortunately we were, but you know, we got a list of 20 things and we got one accomplished yesterday." But each government worked obviously with an eye doing what was best for their operation, and for their government, and for their constituents. And for that reason, there were oftentimes disagreements in what the end result should look like. But even though that was the case, we all worked and we got it done. There was actually ended up being about 5 separate agreements to get service delivery strategy agreement done overall. just simply because it ended up involving a lot more than just service delivery strategy because of some other agreements that have been in place in previous years that we had to get reviewed too. But one of the things that I think service delivery does is I think it is indicative of the fact that the city and the county can work together. We can work corporately. We ultimately did in that, and we have in some other things since then. We have worked hand in hand with pandemic education and enforcement during the previous year. We are working together now on some right-of-way access for a bridge replacement in town. We've worked together in pooling some of our LMIG monies to repair and resurface some roads and streets. We're supporting each other in our first responder services responses, and we don't. I'm not here to tell you that every time me and Carlos, which I see y'all hear from him next week. So every time Carlos and I get on the phone, we don't agree. Every time Henry Craig and I get on the phone, we don't agree. But we are at a point where we almost always are able to work things out. And we had the first transfer of the section of the water system about August of last year that was part of one of the agreements from service delivery. That went very well. And we are meeting tomorrow to finalize the plans for transferring the second 25%. There will be 25% transferred each quarter over a year-long period. We delayed that a little bit because of the pandemic, but we've got that clock started back now, and we've been able to do that. A second home run that I think we've hit the last 18 months or so is the city improving its ISO rating. When Chief William Collier got to the city fire department, he was tasked by my predecessor to do that, and he did in fact do that. The department's previous ISO rating was a 4, and he improved it to a 3. We missed a 2 by 0.8 of a point. And interestingly enough, that 2 had nothing to do with firefighting. So we're working on that piece a little bit. But that improved ISO rating, I think, is a testament to the tremendous work that the guys in the fire department and our water and sewer department. ISO actually looks at your water delivery system more than they look at your firefighting. Once they get equipment checked off on your firefighting ability and training checked off, after that it's water. So all of those people working together managed that to bring that about. It may decrease some folks' insurance premiums for residential and commercial property owners, and if you haven't heard from your insurance company about that just yet, you may want to contact them because it did actually take effect in August of 2019. Our city received 2 what I think are kind of special accolades in the last 12 months. One was that we received the Georgia Exceptional Main Street or GEMS designation. Probably, most of you probably know it here, but I think it's kind of a cool thing to talk about. We were named one of Budget Travel's 10 coolest small towns in America. And it's because of the work of Angie and folks like that in our Main Street that I think that was able to happen. There are currently only 17 cities in the state that are GEMS cities, the Georgia Exceptional Main Street program, and that program just highlights a commitment to excellence and historic preservation and stable leadership and those kinds of things in the Main Street program. And Budget Travel actually asked the question, what makes a small town cool? And that's the way we wound up in that list. Budget Travel said they thought it was cool to reflect the principles upon which the United States was founded, including cultural and ethnic diversity, the free exchange of creative ideas, and the entrepreneurial spirit that lifts all citizens in the community. They also believe it's cool to boast a vibrant downtown, cutting-edge cuisine, and a community spirit that makes visitors feel like friends. And we were selected as number 5 in the top 10 of the coolest towns in the United States. So I think that's, we've known it all along, hadn't we? Now everybody that reads Budget Travel Magazine knows it. In early 2020, we completed Streetscape 4. This particular phase of Streetscape involved completion of new curb and guttering and drainage and paving and irrigation and landscaping for some various blocks on Green, Wilkinson, and McIntosh Street. In addition to that, we used the opportunity when McIntosh Street was dug up to completely rebuild a catch basin and installation of a 48-inch cross drain that goes under McIntosh Street and sends water on down from the city down to Tanya Branch to run on out to wherever it needs to go. That was a big undertaking. That cross drain needed to be replaced a number of years ago, and I'm glad that we were able to work that into that particular repair. Let me give you just a little information of some of the less sexier things going on in the city. Through the receipt of Community Development Block Grant, the city in the last 24 months has been able to complete improvements in the sewer system infrastructure to benefit some residents in our city. I actually already had this in here before I got an email from you yesterday, Merritt. So Merritt and I were emailing about something else, and he said, "Oh, by the way, I got a question for Rotary tomorrow." And we spent about $678,000 on the Community Development Block Grant and added almost $250,000 to that, and provided improvements to a part of the sewer system that actually benefited about 110 residents over in the Klein Avenue and Oak Avenue target areas. This has improved their quality of life through the elimination of some sewage-related issues. We still have a lot of sewage laterals in town that are terracotta pipe. If you know anything about terracotta pipe, you know what happens with terracotta pipe. And we have some sewer mains in terracotta pipe. So having the opportunity to replace those any way we can is huge. We're currently looking at potential new projects that we will do with CDBG funds in the future. We kind of held up on that this year because we wanted to make sure we knew what was happening with COVID, with budget restraints from COVID, and we do have to say up front that we'll match at least 25% of the money that we get from CDBG. So we held off on that this year till we knew what was going on. Every day we count on our public works, water and sewer, and utility maintenance teams for the things that we take for granted, for the things that are underground, and the things that maybe we don't even really want to think about most of the time, and don't think about until there's a problem. Because of that, we removed and replaced 932 linear feet of sidewalks along South Liberty and West Washington Streets. We installed a community parking lot along North Wilkinson Street across from Stella's. We completed the repair of a total of 70 street cuts and 625 potholes. Let me tell you what, trying to keep up with potholes is like trying to keep up with rabbits breed. I mean, you just absolutely can't do it. Tim Thomas is begging me for a hot patch truck to be able to do those more quickly and better. We just got to find the about $190,000 in that hot patch truck cost. We collected and disposed of 1,352 tons of yard waste. One of the advantages of living in the city is that you have your limbs and leaves and those kinds of things picked up at the curb. And that's not, that 1,352 tons was not all of that. Some of that was brought to us, but we repaired 311 water main breaks and 95 sewer main breaks. And let me tell you what, water main breaks especially are just like, if you know anything about the livestock industry, you're probably going to have a cow that has a calf at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's minus 20 degrees. And that's when water main breaks seem to happen. We installed new water mains in Meriwether Circle, on Liberty Street, and Washington Street. We produce an average of 3.8 million gallons of usable water per day. And we treated an average of 2 million gallons of wastewater per day. Wastewater is just a real kind of way of saying sewage. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about what we're looking at for the future, and I'll get through this pretty quickly. We are currently working with an engineering firm to complete a capital improvement plan for the water and sewer system as well as the stormwater system. We obviously make repairs as they have to happen, but I'll just be perfectly honest with you. The city's water and sewer system has not had a whole lot of preventive maintenance for a good number of years. So we're trying to see where we need to start with that and get a plan situated for that and work on it. These plans will take into account a number of measurements and evaluations, including but not limited to population and customer projections and water demand and sewer flow estimates and regulatory changes and assessing the capacity and conditions of each water and sewer and principal drainage structures. We got an email earlier this week from EPD, and they have added 23 new processes and procedures that you have to complete in the treatment of sewage. 23 in one email, and that's kind of been happening every year for quite some time. But when we get finished with this plan, we'll have a comprehensive report, maps, graphics, tables, recommending improvements. This goes along with what we've been working on for about the last year and a half of getting all of our infrastructure plotted on GIS. We actually hired a GIS coordinator for the city, and we're getting that done. Thanks to 2 awards for the Knight Foundation Fund for Milledgeville, which is administered to us through the Community Foundation of Central Georgia, we completed in the fall construction of a pocket plaza in the middle of the 100 block of West Hancock Street, right there in front of local Yokel. And we are currently in the design phase of a park to be located on the green space adjacent to the Marketplace Pavilion in the 200 block of East Hancock Street. Both of these were wonderful. One is a wonderful, the other one will be a wonderful area of our city that serves as excellent examples of placemaking approach to planning and design and management of public spaces. Our first 2 major uses of the Hancock Street Pocket Plaza occurred over the recent holidays with our annual Christmas tree lighting, thanks to Gus Bursley and Fallon Flemister. That was actually done virtually because of weather and the pandemic. And we also, in the plaza, had our first, but it will be an annual, menorah lighting for the city of Milledgeville. Allison Bloodworth came to see me in January, telling me that she thought the city of Milledgeville needed to have some Jewish holiday decorations, and I said, she said, we can put it down there with the Christmas tree, and I said, I agree, but the city of Milledgeville doesn't do the Christmas tree. Fallon Flemister does the Christmas tree. You go get a menorah, we'll put it up for you. And she did, which was wonderful. Now, we even got mentioned in the Wall Street Journal over the menorah. The person, the rabbi who has this kind of cottage industry that builds these things, was interviewed for a Wall Street Journal article. They called and interviewed Allison, and she actually sent a photograph of me and her and Paul Yarn putting the thing up there. So little old Milledgeville got some mention in the Wall Street Journal over this really cool piece of history for Milledgeville that we did this year. Ellie Goodrich said to me that night, she said, Hank, why didn't we do this 50 years ago? And I said, I was only 10, so I can't answer that question. But I'm glad that we're doing it. City Council has approved an IGA between the city and the Oconee River Greenway Authority. We will be serving as the administrator of a $1 million transportation enhancement grant that we will combine with a DNR recreational trails program grant that the city received for $250,000. And we will be extending the Fishing Creek Trail from the Elbert Street Bridge to Flagchapel Lane, which is the street that comes up between Memory Hill Cemetery and Flagchapel. And we're already working with Georgia College to try to get some additional sidewalk on Franklin Street so that whoever can cut through the parking lot and actually get to Central City Park. We wanted to carry the trail all the way to Central City Park, but if you did that, it had to go under a railroad trestle, and you just can't deal with the railroad. It's simple. You can't deal with the railroad. So we needed to as my grandma used to say, make hay while the sun was shining. So we just took the railroad out of the process. We do feel like there's a need to create relationships with the community through some increased interaction, with the overall outcome being better communication. Prior to them having to leave for term due to COVID, we were working with some of the students at Georgia College in the strategic marketing course, and they were identifying potential elements of citizen engagement. And they even though they had to make an early exit through the process, they did share their work up to the point they were at. And we have looked at that. We will continue to look at it, and with time and the pandemic permits, which I hope is soon, we'll consider this information and how it relates to the way we communicate to our citizens. It's a city we feel like it's important to develop our younger citizens to be government leaders in the future. So as a big part of the mayor's agenda for the coming year, we will be creating a youth council and bringing our younger citizens in to help us determine how we should be operating our government. We'll be utilizing some resources from the Georgia Municipal Association and a very successful the city of Dublin to put that together. You may have noticed that a lot of what I've talked about, at least the last half of this, kind of occurs around planning. In light of the service delivery strategy agreement being signed, it's imperative that we as a city begin to take a serious look at what we want to accomplish in the future, both programmatic wise and infrastructure wise. And so we are looking at a strategic planning model process that we'll use to do that. We actually started that a little bit at a planning retreat in January of 2020. We left that planning retreat in Athens, and we had the steam in our engine and the wind at our back, and then COVID hit. COVID hitting is a topic for another time when you want to invite me back to waste some more of your time. And of course, I'll certainly address questions about that today if you have them. But just wrapping up, I want to say thank you for allowing me this time to share some of the city's achievements and our plans that we're getting started for the future. I will tell you, because I think many of you in this room have as much to do with it as the 7 people that I work with mayor and council. So I'm going to tell you all, like I did them, thank you for letting me do what I do. I'm here because those 7 people are happy that I'm here, and those 7 people are happy that I'm here because the people in the community hopefully are happy that I'm here. If you call me, I won't always be able to give you an answer you want. I won't always be able to give you a fast answer, but I will always give you an answer, okay? Sometimes it's simply, like I said to Mayor Massey yesterday, we hadn't had any contact with that person since the 1st of December because we don't have a code enforcement officer anymore. And I said in my email, that's not a very good excuse, but it's the truth, okay? I always tell the truth because I can't remember a lie long enough telling you. But I will do everything I can to help you out. You know, last year when Keith's publication was going through their 200th anniversary, we put an ad in that edition, and Dina Thornton, our Milledgeville Main Street coordinator, I talked to her about designing the ad. And she kind of took it and ran with it, and she thought that it would be a good idea to design the ad in a manner that embodied the element of the history of the city of Milledgeville. So she has some different historical photos of City Hall. And the words in the ad said, in the city of Milledgeville, we are not resting on yesterday's achievements, we're just getting started. I truly feel like the city of Milledgeville is just getting started. We've come through a rough year. It's not been an easy year. I'll just go ahead and tell you, I hope I never in my whole entire life, and nobody else that I know will ever have to be the one to make a decision as to whether a business can stay open or not. That may have been the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole entire life. I want to get out of this mess. I want to move on. I want to be able to hug people again. But we will get there. As my grandmother used to say, at least right now, I think the city of Milledgeville is in real good shape for the shape we're in. And we look forward to 2021 being the time that we can look back on 2020 and say, here's what we learned about what we can do. Here's what we learned about what we need to do. And here's what we know we can do in order to accomplish those things. So with that, I'll take any questions that anybody's got. And Jack.
Hey, I just, on behalf of the Jewish community, just want to thank you because the menorah turned out great. Allison did a great job. Several of the families and the local families got together to help her. And I know that the city worked to make sure it was safe. That was a concern that we had, and we really appreciate it. It meant a lot.
Well, we were happy to do it. We had, as I told Allison that night, we had very little to do with it, but I'm glad we could have as much to do with it as we did.
It was really nice evening.
We look forward. It was on a timer. And the center candle, Jack will have to tell you what that is, I don't know. But the center candle was lit the night that we had the lighting ceremony. And then it was on a timer for each candle, a new candle to be lit every 24 hours. I mean, for this to come out of this little Jewish rabbi's garage, it was really pretty high tech. And so I would go through, on my way in every morning, I'd turn and go down Montgomery Street and turn and come down Hancock just to make sure it's still lit. Because the power bollard and the plaza, as well as the plug of the menorah, both had surge protectors on them. So I wanted to make sure it stayed lit. 7 candles. And I came through the morning that the 8th candle was supposed to be lit, and it wasn't lit. And so I jumped out and relit it and sent Allison a text and said, all lasted, I just had to relocate. Yeah. But we were happy to have it there and excited for that to be there for years to come. And thank you for the part that you had in that. I appreciate that.
That's great.
Any other questions?
The abandoned, dilapidated house, is that project ongoing or?
No. One of the things that I'm looking at real hard, we have a revolving loan fund. I won't get into the whole, I guess I probably need to stay here where these folks can see me on St. Peter. We have I think I was a Baptist preacher in former life because I tend to walk. We have a revolving loan fund, Jimmy, that I won't get into the reason why we have it, but it has something to do with when Frank Pendergast renovated and created the Baldwin Loss. And then some of that money came from DCA, and he's paid that loan back through Century Bank. Some of that money has come back to us for us to be able to turn around and put back in the community. We had a couple of the businesses that started out of Central State took advantage of it, and that helped them get their business up off the ground. There's some talk that DCA may allow us to use some of that money for to work on blight. We've got to decide how much we want to use for that, because if we use that for blight, then that money is not going to come back to us, and it diminishes the amount we have for the revolving loan fund. But I think DCA has some interest in letting us do that. We're working through that process now. What I would love to do, I don't think, probably if mayor and council hear this, I haven't had this conversation with them, they may get mad at me. I don't think as a city we should completely foot the bill for cleaning up somebody's piece of property. Okay? That's just Hank Griffith talking. And then any city manager talking. It's just Hank Griffith talking. But if we had something in place where maybe we could say, we'll share the cost with you 50-50 or something like that. Or if we could get that piece of property and say to a developer, if you clean it up and redevelop it, then we'll look at, doing like a tag where we freeze your property tax rate for 5 years or something like that. So there's some ways to skin that cat, and I think some of that revolving loan fund money may help us do that initially.
What about the land bank?
I have not had any conversations about the land bank, Merritt. That was something that my predecessor talked about with the county. I think we had some county members that were not in favor of a land bank. I don't know why. I have not had that conversation with them. The land banks that I've seen, they either are real good or they're real bad, and which side of that fence they fall on is how they're managed. I do think that getting service delivery out of the way may have been something that might help us look at a land bank again, because obviously we'll have to do that with the county. But I have not had an in-depth conversation with mayor council about what problems they had with the land bank before to say if that's a possibility.
My question is really a curiosity question about the very detailed crosswalk that's been put on. I'm just like scared that they'll figure it out. I don't know. It just looks like it's very.
Well, you can ask Frank Ball about that.
I think
And actually, when I was city planner, Frank and I dealt with DOT on that early on. That was something that DOT came up with. They do actually have one in front of the bookstore at Georgia Tech, and I sat on the sidewalk one day about 15 minutes and watched it, and it really works pretty well. But now those students are engineering students, so they may have something to do. But I think there's gonna be a learning curve. You know, the signal that's down closer to the bank in front of Magnolia Ballroom, the halt signal, it will actually work in conjunction with what they call the barn dance up at Hancock and Clark. So hopefully that's going to keep traffic moving better. And when traffic stops at that intersection, it'll stop everywhere. So I'm going to be anxious to see it. The first day the students are back, I may just put me a folding chair up the sidewalk. But I will go ahead and tell you, I'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. Georgia College has actually worked with the city. They did the traffic study, and there is an additional halt system being installed on Montgomery Street near where it intersects with Liberty. And just outside that gate at the library on Montgomery Street. Frank and I actually finished hammering out the IGA on that yesterday via email. But if the barn dance at Hancock and Clark works well, there's a possibility one may be put at Wilkinson and Montgomery, especially when the new science center is open. So we'll see. I sent Collins an email this morning, as a matter of fact, asking him if that entire, and Frank, you may know this, if that entire intersection is going to be striped. Because the others that I've seen, the crosswalks that go across the road, they're all hatched. I mean, they're completely striped, so it's very clear that it's a crosswalk. That one, it looks like it's just kind of sending folks in the general direction. And I have some concerns with sending people in the general direction. I think we need to give them the yellow brick road to follow.
I guess we talk like the weapons building downtown. And secondly, I don't know if this is even your, you can answer this or whatever, but as far as the cities, I guess with the budget constraints, the budget going on, as far as the police department, as far as, I mean, the kind of crime in the areas, I know it's escalated. Even I know right now we're like, it's police patrol every afternoon now with people trying to break in cars, and it's all the counties. Yes. You know, the Kansas City's telling us that we have, 2 or 3 officers on duty at one time, so we've got off-duty officers that live in the neighborhood now trying to patrol the neighborhood. So
We at this point in time, I really don't see city law enforcement as a funding issue, other than the fact that obviously I might be able to pay them more, and I might be able to pay every city employee more. I told those folks out on Landy Road that morning, I said, I can't near pay you what you want. Recruiting people into law enforcement, no matter what you pay, is hard. It's hard. We typically run anywhere from 4 to sometimes 7 openings for patrol officers. So obviously what we do a lot of is we hire people and then we sponsor them and send them to mandate. And that helps, but I don't know that we could ever chase that recruitment piece with enough money to make it matter. But we obviously, I get police reports twice a day, and one was, car break-in was in my neighborhood last night. So it is an issue right now. For a while, it was just door handle lifting, and if they found it open, they would rummage through it. Now they're actually beginning to damage property and force it. So I've actually asked Chief Swiker for he and I to have a conversation about that next week to see if there's some other things we can do differently. But it's not as much of a budget issue as much as it is just it's difficult to recruit folks to be in law enforcement. The old Evans building, anything that gets tied up in the courts takes forever. We spent early in 2019 a little while with the owner of that building, with him saying he was going to take us to court, and I said we were going to take him to court. We got to the point where we were going to try to do some depositions. COVID hit. The owner of that building is on up in age, and he started not getting out too much with COVID, so we situated some things with Zoom, and then a potential purchaser looked at it and was negotiating with that person, with the owner, and that did not work out. So we're looking, when I say we, the city is looking to see how we might be able to acquire that building, and quite frankly, we're going to acquire it and turn it and sell it. We don't want it. We don't have the money to fix it. We don't have the money to tear it down because of the structural engineering piece of it. But there's already been some people who have said to the city, if you get it, we'll purchase it. And so I would love for that to be something that we accomplish in 2021, and it is high on my list because it looks terrible. It's dangerous. And 100 block of South Wayne, where the roof collapsed, the building. And so we're working. My time is probably about up. I remember years ago speaking to Rotary when I worked at George College, and I'll tell you how long ago that was. And the person said, and if 1 o'clock comes and you're still talking, they'll get up and leave. I said, some of you are beginning to leave, so let's be close to 1 o'clock. Well, I've said it's but feel free to call me if you need me. 414-4009 will get me every time. And I'll help you all I can in the manner that city law, ordinance, and ethics allows me to do that. So, oh, right. Boy, that's perfect for me. Lord. Oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
Any quick announcements?
So these tickets that people bought are right here, and there's one thing that's coming up, it's going to be great, but we got names from, but I need at least a phone number.